Hey everybody, and welcome to November's developer live stream for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Tonight, I'm excited to host a AMA. For those that don't know what that means, that's an Ask Me Anything session with a lot of I don't know what we call you guys, the some of the core developers. We don't have everybody here. There's still some great people who couldn't make it tonight, but we should be able to cover a lot of topics tonight, get a lot of answers out there to everybody. So before we even begin, I will introduce everybody here, but go ahead and start firing those questions into the chat because we're going to need them or else it's going to be a very interesting chat with all of us just looking at each other and telling stories. So go ahead and fire those questions in and we'll have those ready and we'll start going through those quick. But I want to get through here and we're going to introduce everybody so that everyone knows who they're asking questions to. But more importantly, we're going to give a little bit of a little background on what their main focus is for anybody who might be newly discovering us as well, so you know who to maybe throw those questions out or what questions might work. So let's go ahead and start with Chris Joppa Perkins, our creative director. Chris, if you want to say hi and kind of tell people where your main focus is, which should be pretty interesting.
Well, hello, and I'll keep it short and sweet. I would say creative director, my primary focus is overseeing the development of the game. So I'm keeping tabs on the creative side of the house, which involves the game design, the art, the lore, and the audio, and really everything that fits in that category. And then also, making sure that the programming side of the house knows what our ultimate goals are and understands our systems adequately and knows exactly how we need those built. I am the lead game designer as well, and so there is a lot of focus spent on really shepherding the overall kind of design of the game. We're going to hear from one of our game designers tonight, Adam, and obviously there's more than just me feeding into that, but it's a really fun thing that I get to do. It's an honor, and excited to have you here too, Tony. It's pretty cool having you on camera for the first time. So
it's been a while.
Excited to see how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next up is Adam Tehom Mostel. I put a little bit of
hey guys
fancy on your name there. Yeah, please introduce yourself. Let people know what you're working on.
Yeah, hey guys. I am Adam, or Taham, as those of you who've hung out with me on Discord a little bit may know me. I am a game designer as well as a associate producer on the team. Right now, my focus is primarily on our updates to our combat system. So everything that goes into that, classes, ability design, the combat pacing, resource management. It's a whole lot of stuff that goes involved there. Also, the other side of that, which is our NPCs, so NPC design and counter design, abilities, traits, dispositions, and of course also the perception system that is also in my wheelhouse as well. And then on the production side, I'm also helping to manage our timeline and our roadmap and making sure that we're building this game and getting it out into your hands.
So a lot of fun questions to ask Adam for his first video appearance on a stream. So definitely have some fun with that, everybody. Excited. Thank you, Adam, for jumping on there. And then via voice, we have two. And I don't know if Kyle thought he was going to get away from this nickname. He's not. He said his nickname on the team here is EG, which is really hard for a GM to report or anybody to report because it's all I's and J's and stuff like that. But we have Kyle Olson, our lead programmer. Kyle, if you want to talk to everybody about what you're working on, introduce yourself.
Funny enough, I realize now you actually spelled it wrong in the overlay too.
Did I?
No.
Yeah, you messed up the I's and the J's.
Oh, is it all? Is that really?
No, I-I-J-J-I. Come on, man.
Nobody who knows. They can't read it anyway.
Yeah, it's not. That's the whole point. It's not to be readable. Anyway, so I am lead programmer, like you said. I've been focused mostly on gameplay programming, network code, and kind of steering our technology decisions and choices that we make in the right direction.
Awesome. I think that's a humble way of saying he does a lot. I think everybody here does a lot. That's the fun part about tonight. So awesome. Thank you, Kyle, for getting away from the computer. Well, technically, he's probably coding while we're doing this. I wouldn't be surprised. So thank you for giving us some time. I know the community loves chatting with you about this stuff. So awesome.
Yeah, no worries.
And finally, last but certainly not least, a huge crowd favorite. And we're going to try to protect him from Joppa tonight. But we have JN, and I think it's a Stolame. I think that's the way I'm going with that one. Gerhardt, our lead writer. Welcome, JN. Thank you for being here tonight. If you want to let people know what you're working on and what you've worked on so far.
Thank you, Minus. And I don't think anyone can protect me from the aggro radius that Chris has on me. So I do lead most of the narrative content when it comes to kind of the themes, places, people, and all that stuff. I think everything we do is pretty iterative, though, and so I at least plant the seeds and help guide that, whether it's the idea for a zone, beginning to shape some of the look and feel with someone like Jared Pullen. But most of the written work that we've done, whether that's in game or published publicly, I do, and just generally lead the narrative content for the game. My title is lead writer, but we all kind of, as you've seen, we all kind of cross streams with different things. So I assist with world building when that's needed, and help to keep those things on track and give them a reason for existence as much as we can.
Awesome. Well, I always, since I've been here and even before, I really try to suck up to JN. It's somebody I really want to make sure I am on the good side of, because I'm really working hard to get that dark mirror out there as official. So we'll see what happens. But enough. As Chris
Talk about a losing battle right off the bat.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So everybody, I hope that all the voices are good for you in Twitch chat. If anybody out there is having a hard time hearing anything, please just let me know. I can adjust it on the fly, but I think everybody's sounding good. So I'm not going to waste any time joking around or being minus. We got a lot of questions to go through here. You guys are already doing a great job. Keep them coming. We want to try to answer everything we can. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question here is from Nagasaki. And he says, to date, we've only had one general testing session with the monk. It seems that the tester's general feedback was that the monk's melee DPS was actually low, and that the LAS, or that's our limited action set, might possibly be too restrictive compared to other classes. And he's referring to the strike kick icons taking 2 spots on the bar. And for those that don't know, they are changeable. We haven't seen the depth of it yet, but changeable attacks that you can select if you want that will add passive attacks into your combat. So he asks, has VR made any changes to the class to improve Monk's DPS since then? Do you expect to? Or what do you think of the overall Monk feedback that's been given by the community? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I can take a stab at this. So, might be a bit of a bean drop to start us off. So yes, I mean, absolutely, the Monk is. I mean, ultimately, every class is actually seeing revisions and improvements as part of this combat update that we're doing. A lot of that is, of course, based off some of the feedback that's come through from our players. A lot of that has been just based off our own observations, doing measurements to make sure the class is actually meeting our goals for the game. Monk is definitely one of those. So I can say, without going into too much detail, that their DPS options should become much more in line with many of the other melee DPS classes. And also with regards to those, I believe we call them active passives in the past, like our strike and our kick. There is currently the goal is to have that modified so that those will be they'll still retain their passive states, but they'll also be able to be used as active abilities as well. So that will help with some of that LAS management that's being asked about here. Now that's also part of going into emphasizing the choices that come into play when players are putting things on their bar and the tactics that they're using. So do they sacrifice having that passive active by using the active ability on that passive? We need to come up with a better name for these things. But yeah, that's one of the choices that we're definitely looking to improve upon, among many others.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything on that one? That's good. You dropped the bean right away. You're getting us started well here. He knows. Adam's like, yep, I'm going up that list. I'm going to go up that list.
I tried to find a can of beans as a prop, but no such luck.
Just a can?
Just a can.
Joppa's like, don't worry, I got you covered. All right, so the next question, and by the way, for those that don't know me, I am going to butcher your usernames on Twitch. Just know I'm trying hard. The next one here is from Valeru 2022. And we knew this one was coming, and I love it. And I will actually give a small answer on this. When is the next PA? So next, they're asking when the next testing session is. So here's what we can say. It is not locked down just yet, but stay tuned for an announcement very soon on this. So that's all I'm going to be able to say there. Anybody else want to add anything to that without getting in trouble? I think we're good. All right, so next here from DougBug27 says, can you explain how the Druid will play in regards to the Fox and the indirect healing? So, Chris, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we would be saying anything at this point differently from what we've already kind of put forward. I think a lot of what Adam just described can be thematic for what we would say about a lot of the classes, in that you're going to continue to see evolutions of the classes that we have shown so far. And that means that the Druid, while still, on track for the way that we've presented it and the idea of designing it around indirect healing, using Herode as this kind of extension of themselves, that is still the case, but not super ready at this point to talk about any distinct evolutions that may have come along the way. But the idea, again, is just that each of the healing classes would have their own playstyle, would have a bit of their own flavor in how they do what they do. And for the Druid, we're looking to capture something that is a little different. And I'm really excited about their kit. I'm really excited about how unique that class is, the potential for the uniqueness of that class and the experience of playing it. So really excited to get that one in.
Now I'm gonna try to help out when I can here, Twitch chat. So Chris, I'll ask you one thing that maybe is that you kind of alluded to there with that might make people feel a little bit better. Is I know that a lot of the Herode abilities were removed when the class page updated. So what you're saying is that that general idea that's kind of always been there for that character that's going to be so unique to Druid is still there. Druids can still expect that interaction that they kind of heard about back when the class was announced. Awesome. I think that's big. I think some people were worried. So hopefully that helps people a little bit. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so the next one here is a real Fazul says, I'm seriously worried about every MMORPG becomes a race to the top. He says MMORPGs were never that before. How do we look to defend against that as a team?
Man, what a question. That's a good one. I'm thinking about so many of the conversations we've been having lately, even, and how many things could feed into that.
I've got a good one, I think.
Go ahead, man. Yeah,
relevancy. So in most MMOs these days, you race to the end game because the leveling up process is sort of irrelevant. You earn things that don't really matter. Your gear gets replaced. The things that you can farm aren't relevant at end game because they're replaced by the newest type of material. So there's just this gap that you're trying to cross to get to the real part of the game. Whereas it used to be that leveling up process was part of the actual game. I think that's sort of what's been lost.
Adam, I know you've got some.
Yeah.
Some this too, so.
No, I mean that really I think covers it pretty well. That's definitely been my experience. I remember playing games, and I'm just even if I had goals that I could achieve, I could farm a dungeon for a piece of gear, and I just wouldn't because I would out-level it more quickly than it would take me to farm it, and then I would just go back and farm it myself anyway, if I really wanted the appearance or something, and it just kind of lost its value in that sense. So I think that's kind of a big part of it, is just making sure that the content and the rewards for that content have relevance throughout the lifespan of the game. That, and I think also just making it fun. Right? I think that's the other big thing, is that there's a lot of people who feel like the game only begins when you get to the end, right? The raiding is the fun part. The class kits only develop when you get to the end game. NPCs are basically tutorials. Like, that's part of why raiding is the only fun part, because there's no complexity to the NPCs that you fight until you reach that point. Those are all things that we definitely want to design against. We definitely want to make sure that the content is there and the content is engaging and challenging and fun. whether you're, talking, I don't know about level 1, maybe level 4 or 5, but definitely beginning in that early game all the way through, quote unquote end game.
Oh boy. I'll just key off of something that Adam said. And my hope is that most of the people who follow our development somewhat closely are familiar with us saying that a lot. Like, is it fun? Is this actually fun? And it's a topic that I've been thinking of quite a bit lately. And like I said, we've had a lot of internal discussions around this. But if you really stop and think about it, how many MMOs are we playing? How much MMO game playing are we collectively as MMO game players doing today, where we could say we're actually having fun? Like I am actually enjoying my time spent in investing in this experience. And I don't mean the very familiar hooks of progression or the same kind of experiences we can have with like mobile games, for example, where we just feel like we need to log in compulsively because there's new things to get that day and we've just feel hooked. But I mean, like, when have you actually had fun? And it's a really important question in this kind of framework of developing Pantheon and how we want the game to be set apart and different. And part of that really is asking that question and engaging with that question all the way through. And so for us, how we differentiate and how we actually prove ourselves to be different in this regard is how we're answering that question, or at least that's a really big part of it. How are we answering the question of, is Pantheon fun to play throughout the experience, the level range? A lot of that comes in kind of the breadth and depth of activities that there are to do, the different kind of shades and colors of progression that players can experience in playing Pantheon. The idea that if you race to end game, for example, just in levels, you are going to be lacking so much of the breadth and depth of your character's development that you really need to most fully engage with the world and have the world open up to you appropriately. So there's a lot of things that go into that, answering that question. We'll leave it at that for now because it's a great question, worthy of an entire episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And every decision plays into that. Everything, from a system to the classes, everything plays into that. So next one here from Random Rob. This is great. Question for Joppa. Are you really small in real life, or do you own the world's largest mugs?
Oh, that's funny.
We were talking about that before the stream. So Random Rob, good pickup.
This is actually my wife's mug, and I was laughing earlier because it was there. I wanted some water, and so I used it. I didn't realize it was actually like VR pink, which is kind of cool. But no, I would say it's not me being small in comparison to the largeness of the mug, although it is just a large mug.
We were trying to get him to use a Sharpie and make the VR logo, and then we're going to tell you guys that was our new merch, but we didn't get to that in time, unfortunately. The next one here is from Desrin Does. Says, question. So Fortress Devayer had some pretty good content density, especially when it comes to clickies. Can we expect that kind of density as zones begin to be fully built out? And plus, would this work have to wait for a dedicated world builder, or is that something that we're already working
on? I'll hit that one really quickly, and then I'd love for you to add anything you'd like to, JN. But the technical side of the question, no, it does not take a lot of time to do. We have some really amazing content creation tools that allow us to interact with the perception system and those elements of the perception system specifically very easily. And so anything from like a ping, those messages that will kind of pop up and alert you to something you should take notice to, or an object that you can pick up in the environment or interact with in the environment, all the way to setting up our dialogues for NPCs and conversations and the different flags and paths that those can go down. All of it through the tool that Robert Crane, our lead programmer, who we heard from last stream, he's put together, has just made that such an enjoyable process and a very productive one design-wise. So as far as like the density, like what we can expect in terms of how much density, I would say that it's an example of what we can do. It's not necessarily indicative of what every area will look like. You can expect some areas to be more dense than others for sure. But that's where I would kick it to JN and say, obviously there's a tie-in with how dense the lore and the context actually is with these different areas. So is there anything you want to add to that, Justin?
First, I would say that just echo what you said about Rob's work that has made all of this possible. I would think the word enjoyable is the right word to use when talking about how we can approach this. I would also say like freeing or liberating, because most of what we can imagine can be implemented in some form or fashion. And so that's where the second part I would say that I I'm happy with parts of how Fortress Dead by Air came out and how it is right now too, and then how it was when we streamed it last. It's not finished at all, but I think there's a measure of refinement, and then also we're just always trying to find something that is familiar enough so that the player's not going into an area and almost having to relearn how to look around. Adam's been great in thinking along this, and we're going to need help from you all as we move through testing to get good feedback on like where are we basically training good instincts and good habits rather than just spamming stuff everywhere, because like CP just said, we can do a lot. We can make an area, as dense as we want. We could make every book on every shelf readable, and that would be a time sink for everyone and a waste of energy and resources. So I think it's a great example, just like Chris said, of what we can do. And then there are going to be areas that just naturally lend themselves to having more interactable objects, more interactable NPCs. But it's the same, we're kind of at the same place that I would say like conversations are at with NPCs, storylines are at with NPCs, where we're still exploring what is the right tempo, the right cadence, the right amount of everything from text on a screen to conversation paths to whatever. All of that has got to be dialed in over time. So it's a great example of what we can do. I'm happy with parts of it, but we'll see how consistently we find areas in the world that justify that level of encounter and experience.
Excellent. Thank you. Next one here is from, I know I'm going to pronounce this one wrong, Enoch87. He says, once the full core systems are online, the network stack, HDRP in place, how will you tackle content push to build out the rest of the world? Do you envision outsourcing work to help with this?
Couple questions in there. Kyle, do you want to take that first?
I mean, which part of that would I take?
Networking stack, HDRP.
Well, they're asking once those are online, how will we do lots of content building?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. No problem. It was a big one. So the first part is once all, HDRP networking, once all that's in place, obviously the next step is content push. People are looking at when it comes to that content building and content pushing, building out the rest of the world. Do you think that we're going to need to outsource to do that? Or like, how are we going to tackle that as a team to really hit the pedal to the metal, so to speak?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a couple of specific ways that we move faster, right? There's developing in-house tools that allow us to do work more quickly and be more productive. The better your tools are, the more work you can get done the more quickly without having to fix and revisit. So that's one avenue. And on that, I would grade us as like an A+ right now. We have amazing tooling, and the work that we're able to get done is incredible. The other way you go faster is by having more people working. And so that's the constant kind of tension that we have, is we're wanting to move as quickly as we can. And to do that, we need to scale. And to scale, we need to, have the funds to do that. And so that's why you hear us, talking about, mentioning the crowdfunding efforts and, pledging to the development, things like that, because that's the other way that you move faster. The final way that you move faster is kind of maybe a play on the first piece, and that is just to make sure that you're working on a clean foundation and make sure that everything that you are building has everything that is yet to come in mind. And that's when we went, underwater, heads down for that period of time to refactor so much of the game. It's for that very purpose, to kind of get everything clean and load bearing and ready to receive everything that we were going to be building on top of it. So the main way we move faster right now with all the things that we now have in place is we're really poised to grow and scale as a team in terms of the headcount of the team. And we're very positive, about the outlook of being able to do that in a timely fashion. So I will leave it at that for now.
Awesome. Good stuff. Anybody else have anything to add on that? I mean, Kyle, you've kind of seen, as these tools have been put in, you've seen speed increase, I'm sure, across various systems. And
from, well, depending on the area that you're talking about specifically, I think design, since the Odin tool and since now more recently the terrain tools have come online, I think design have been unblocked in a very real way. I think there were points where they didn't really know what they could do when they log in for the day, just because you can't add more stuff to a scene because it's already performance bound. It's difficult to work with some of was difficult to work with some of the back end stuff. That's just thing of the past now. So yeah, I think it's been a lot of wins in a lot of areas.
Awesome. So kind of, jumping on the same thing, we've had a lot of people asking some funding questions. One of the things we have to be very clear on is that there's nothing to announce right now. But I would say, without getting myself in trouble, that the excitement level is at a very high right now, with some great opportunities that are at least in the works. And when we are able to, I'm sure it'll be screamed from the mountaintops with how excited we'll be. Chris, you've kind of hinted at, like, hey, we're ready to hire more people, right? We're getting to that point where I think in the past, Chris, you've said, hiring just to hire wouldn't really help the game in some of the states we were in. If we would have just brought in a bunch of people, it wouldn't have really pushed us to where we needed to be because other things needed done. So knowing that, once we get through some of these projects, like you kind of just said, it's going to be a time where, when that funding comes in from all your crowdfunding support, for all of you who head to pantheon.mmo, and pledge, or we just started to refer a friend, and I get it, but we know we have friends that have been checking the game out. Get yourself a little bonus from, letting them know you guys have always helped us there. So, between investment opportunities, between the progress being made, it's exciting. So I just wanted to make sure everybody, kind of knew that as these funding questions are coming in. It's kind of a broad stroke answer to the whole thing, but I think it's the best one we can give right now. So another thing here, and it's from F3KS1. Are racial actives planned? And if so, when can we expect to see them?
So they are still planned. I cannot give an ETA on when you can expect to see them, but I can say that among the many evolutions that we're doing for our combat, racial stats are one of those. So you're going to see those of you who are VIPs. At some point in the near future, you will see the racial stats a little bit more diverse than you've seen them in the past, and that is setting the stage for future racial diversification, which includes racial actives.
Awesome. I know people are excited for that. We've heard that question quite a bit. Got to make sure they work, though. You don't want to end up with, that racial active that means if you like doing this, you have to be this. We want to make sure we don't. It's a balance thing. So, great question here.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for those things to come online. My goodness. My goodness.
Is it just so you don't have to keep answering questions about them? Or no, just kidding.
No. It's just it's going to be really fun. I'm
awesome.
really excited about it.
So, and Chris, this one is something where maybe you can, I don't know, can I set some expectations for, we can't give a date yet, but what people might see in the next pre-alpha session. But the question was from Mithras, Mythiosaurus, I don't know.
Mr.
JN, watch this guy.
Ah,
Just
there it
to,
is. There's
it's the first one. All right, so to make, he says, just to make it official, he's looking for official here. Will Warrior be available in the next testing session?
Will the Warrior be available in the next pre-alpha testing session?
Mhm.
Is that the question?
Yep.
The answer is no. And the reason is because our plan is to do our next pre-alpha session, kind of the final one of the year, as the kind of send-off farewell to the current kind of state of the client with the current project. When we switch to the HDRP project, it is going to be such a massive kind of shift that we want, to make sure that it is fully and completely ready to do so, that, the classes are ready to be brought to bear in there as well. And so it's an opportunity for us to have one last chance to, have our pre-alpha session with the old build. Now, to be clear, this is not me saying that after that comes alpha. This is just me saying that after the turn of the year, that is when we make kind of our full swing into the new HDRP project, which obviously gets us very close to, much closer to the alpha point. But that is why you will not see those classes yet. But they will be coming not long after that.
Cool. Thank you. Coldfire989 asks, how's the pet system coming along? Has it been started yet along with the summoner?
So the pet system has not been started yet. That is the networking refactor is a prerequisite for the pet system. If you have not checked out our roadmap from previous producers' letters, as of the last month, October newsletter, we did update that roadmap, and that is now at least somewhat in priority order. So especially if you look at the programming items, you'll notice that pet system is actually sitting under the network stack, and that's actually in order of when we plan to address those items. In part because Kyle, who's on this call, is the person who is doing both the network stack and also the person who is doing the pet system. So, yeah.
There you go. Kyle, any comments on the pet system?
No, just made the most sense to get the bigger stuff out of the way first. So it moved back behind some other larger ticket items is all.
Awesome. People are going to love it, though, right?
A lot of effort into curating that Road to Alpha list.
Yeah.
So it's load bearing, and so definitely pay close attention to that. And it is in kind of progressional order and everything as well. So it should be a really helpful tool to orient you to where we're at in the process.
Awesome. Next one here from Doug Bug 27 again says, what do you consider the sweet spot for the amount of text that's shown during a perception ping? Adam, that's probably right up your alley.
It is, but I'm actually kind of curious to hear what Justin's answer to this would be. I'm going to say a sentence, probably no more and maybe less at times. And the reason for that is because of what those pings are intended to represent, with them being more hints and intuition from the player. I feel like having more text within a ping would just, diminish that a little bit.
Justin?
I'm going to say war and peace. Just those 3 words is probably enough. War and peace. I'm going to agree with Adam. Probably a sentence. That is what I would put in the bucket of things we need to refine and get down to, because it just can't be distracting. It needs to be easily digestible. And so part of that, if you've been in our PA sessions, is even with how it appears in a chat box, so that you have it with you kind of at a glance, even after it's faded, or if you've missed it. Let's say you ran across one that was in combat or something. Just having a voice. We want perception to have a voice that is unilateral throughout the world. And so brevity is the best for those pings. So I think that Adam said it well.
Awesome.
I will say though, I'll be surprised if we can keep it to a sentence. Just
Yeah.
to put that out there.
For
Now,
all of them, anyway.
no more than 2 sentences. Like I would never want to see more than 2.
Yeah.
But I'm just throwing that out there. 1 line is not very much. So that's the goal. But
So it could be something like, you feel the cold air against you, but something's unsettling, period. What could it be?
I would say that's
Question
actually
mark.
a pretty bad perception ping.
That's why I'm not on the system. Don't worry, anybody watching, I have nothing to do with perception. We are all safe.
So all I know is that if we are going to have more than one sentence in a perception ping, it needs to be dynamically scalable. That way I can put in War and Peace and just fill up a player's page.
Mhm.
And that'll be our new PvP tactic. Just
Yep.
totally block
Totally
out your
lock up
screen.
their
Yeah.
page file.
That's a
and
great
basically
boss. That's a
lock
great
up their-
boss mechanic.
Yeah. If you can generate like something, an ability that just forces a ping on someone else, like basically hijacks their perception.
You like throwing snowballs, right? You're throwing pings at other players. Yeah.
Exactly. Pew pew ping ping. Same idea.
Nice. Oh, I love it. The next one here is from Krolwich. When the game launches, do y'all plan to have any type of interactive GM stuff, such as playing NPCs that interact with players, etc.? What happened? What happened to Chris?
I'm just thinking of some funny stuff. Yes, we do. On a serious note, yes. I'm just imagining some of the situations we can put some of our current people in. That would be really humorous.
If I could just steal stuff from people, like they don't even realize, that'd be so good. They can get it back through some quest. I won't write the quest apparently, but
I will say that I think with the kind of game that we're developing and the kind of game experience that it'll be, I think GM events could just be absolutely fantastic. Lots of fun.
I have a special place in my heart for live events, in part because I'm a role player. Just that's my background among my many other backgrounds. But especially like having things that are more canonical, things that are not scripted necessarily, but help evolve the game and the game storyline and help emphasize what's occurring in the world. Lots of cool things that we can do there. And yeah, if we can do it, I would love to see it.
And I won't speak in various roundtables. Kilson does the roundtable. There's been, many people on that said, hey, if we're able to do it, I'll volunteer anytime needed. So there's a lot of passion from the developer team because of knowing in the past what those GM events meant, and to be able to kind of take that legacy forward where it feels like it's sort of been gone for a while. So I think internally people will be begging for it too. So it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The next one here is from Radell. He says, how soon will we see the models in game for the other races like the Skar?
I would just check the alpha checklist, and it's something that we're committed to having done by the time alpha rolls around, and it's got its slot, and we're working towards it.
Awesome. Next one is from First EQ1. They said, what would you say to anyone considering a pledge level with pre-alpha access currently in regards to alpha approaches? It's a great question. He asks, will you cut off pre-alpha pledges when it gets closer to alpha, when the pre-alpha perk is potentially short of life? So I can add a little bit here. We have our curator helping, and good comment here from our curator of the questions. The answer sort of is that we still have plenty of pre-alpha time left, and we believe very strongly that it's still worthwhile to be a pre-alpha member, that you're going to get good testing time that we're going to need, and there's a lot that we're going to need from that community still. And this is an interesting comment here, but even if there was only, and we're not saying this is a fact, but even if there was only one PA session left, whatever that last one would look like, it's going to be long. Like, it'll be a long session that will have a lot of value. So, Chris, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, I would just say to expect too that when we say there's a lot of PA testing time left, I mean, yeah, obviously that can be taken as, well, does that mean that we're looking, at a long time before alpha? And that's not so much how I think of that answer. It's really more of how the pre-alpha testing sessions will kind of evolve and change as we get closer to alpha, meaning that they're going to be happening more rapidly. They're going to be for longer, more rapidly, meaning there won't be as much time in between. The amount of game that will be there and needing to be tested fully is going to grow exponentially, pretty quickly and pretty steadily as we move into the new year. So what it means to be a pre-alpha tester is going to deepen and broaden very substantially in the coming months. So yeah, I think there's a whole lot of worth left for sure for picking that up.
Great job with clarifying that too. That was a good point. I didn't want to, all of a sudden Minus says they're alphas forever. Wait, no, I didn't. So thank you, Chris, for saving me from that. The next question here is from Captain Bardo. Says, how much of alpha will become company assets?
How much of alpha will become
our own assets versus
right.
Unity assets?
So I want to make a clarification here, because I've seen this enough that, and without knowing exactly what I have said on this topic historically, which now that the Library of Pantheon is open, I'm sure I can go and find out exactly what I've said.
Nice plug
about it, which is cool. Plug. But it is not so much that we have an issue using Unity assets. They are there for that reason, that we use them early on to help us prototype more quickly. We may still continue using them and may even launch Pantheon with some of those still intact. The key is, do they fit? Do they work? An example is the Halnir Cave modules. Those cave modules are a Unity asset, but they happen to work really, really well as caves. And we've also done a ton of custom stuff with them, with the textures, the materials, the lighting, how we've used the layout and used some of our own assets in conjunction with those to create looks and contours and aspects of those areas that you wouldn't find just using assets on the store. There's nothing wrong to us with utilizing Unity assets where it makes sense. The problem is when you start leaning too heavily on Unity assets such that your bespoke pieces and your very unique, identity carrying pieces aren't that. They are also Unity store assets. That's when you start running into an issue. And that's where we're, going to be making sure that we have, the emblematic pieces and all the pieces that we need to make sure Pantheon is its own. But there's a lot of art that MMOs need. And wherever we can find, sources of that, especially if you're talking more mundane items in the world, I don't think anyone should care, in my opinion, that they're going to see a crate and say, well, that's not a VR crate. So I
challenge people to figure that out. Actually, that would be the more impressive.
Sure.
You have to have a high enough perception skill.
Yeah.
This crate seems odd.
Right. This crate seems out of place. You perceive a link to a website. The other question being about like crowd or outsourcing, and outsourcing is a really powerful vehicle that we have in our arsenal as well. It's something that needs to be managed very carefully. It's something that can also at the same time be a huge, huge boon to getting, the large amounts of art finished that we need. We're not planning on all of our art being outsourced. Obviously, we need that, core team, internal team driving the identity and the visuals of the game. But there's a lot of additional art that with the right kind of oversight and leadership, we can utilize some outsourcing options to really, really great effect. So the answer to the question, by alpha, we will not have any gray box by the time alpha launches. But you could still see some Unity assets here and there that we've deemed fit enough with the art style of the game and work well enough for our purposes.
Awesome. And JN, I know with the passion you put into the history of the world and the lore, you know, as Chris sort of said there, having those built, you know, assets that we need to have to be able to make those moments of discovery stand out, you couldn't probably do with pre-built assets.
I think it depends. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
did you hear me?
Yeah, you said you think it depends.
I think it depends. Yeah, I mean, you know, we don't have to create a rock for a rock to work in in the game, but a hero piece, on the other hand, or something that signifies a specific race or whatever. Yeah, we want to tailor those and anchor those and make sure that's good. But a lot of environmental storytelling and fit is whether we make the rock natively or proprietarily or someone else makes it, it's about the placement and the person using it. So
Awesome. Next question here is from Morak. They say, when it comes to terrain streaming, in the last stream we saw a level of detail broken up into squares. Does this apply vertically as well? And if not, will this eventually impose challenges when incorporating more detail into areas of verticality? For example, they reference the Tower of the Reckless Magician.
So that what you saw is for purely loading off of disk. Once something is in the level of detail 0 level, so the highest quality, a more fine-grained level of detail, frustum color, distance color kicks in at that point, just for managing the high level of detail squares. So it scales vertically for LOD 0, but we don't bother running those more expensive systems for the further away squares. So yeah, we're covered.
Awesome. And those squares are very big. You know, it's when you see them from above like that, those squares of terrain loading are huge.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah.
And there are 4 level of detail 0 squares at any given time. So the one that you're directly over and the 3 closest squares to that one that you're in. So there's always 4 very large tiles attempting to stream in the highest quality detail stuff around you.
Awesome. Awesome. The next one here is an interesting question. JN and Joppa are probably going to have to jump in on this a little bit, but it's from Jay Tsunami. They said, can we expect that all the locations that were highlighted in the lore piece, The Bait, to be expected at launch? A tricky one.
there's no way I am taking the lead on this, in part because I did not vet any of those locations with CP before I put them in. So there is no way I'm going to say they're going to be in at launch. The benefit of them is that they are islands.
They're not.
Well, okay, the Vels are an island or an island chain, so maybe we have a chance of that. I mean, I can say some of them because one of them is a starting city, so the beginning is a starting city. The sea and the storm is in Dothane's mind, so that you have to get into some serious RP to go there. And then the Petrified Forest, that I believe will be in at launch, but I'm gonna leave that to CP. But that's part of rainfall proper, so I can't say with 100% certainty. So now that I have just done what I said I would not do, CP can speak and correct me.
I think that's a great answer, man.
I love it. I love just that. Such a real moment right there, right? Like that's game design, right, Chris? You talk about it all the time.
Oh, totally. And most people probably don't know that, like, Jane and I are probably, well, best friends in real life.
Yes.
And so there's some relational equity that's that inevitably comes through when we get on things like this together. But yeah, I trust Justin implicitly as far as his discretion with things like that. And the cool thing about this is with our new approach to terrain streaming and the tech that we're utilizing, and now the open world nature of the world, I am much less hesitant, much more open about seeing places spring up. I was actually having a conversation with Sacred Tyler earlier today about a particular tweak of a particular POI in a particular area, and how.
Chris, I'm going to need you to be less specific. We're not sure if yet.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate you holding me to that. But how we have such freedom to do whatever we want to do, as far as maneuvering that, placing that, especially when we're talking about things like islands or things off the coast. It's really an amazing thing. So I would say that my goal would be that any place that we've been able to speak to directly in the lore would be available. I mean, obviously available at some point in the game's life, but the more of these iconic places that we can have available at launch, I mean, it's just a really important the relationship. As we get closer to launch, I fully expect Pantheon's lore to permeate and become something that people, more and more people, and people that probably don't have any expectation that they will be interested in something like lore because maybe they never have before. The relationship between the lore of our game and the game and the experience in the world that we're building, very, very significant. And so I expect the moment when you walk into the Burning Sanctum or the Silent Sanctum, and you kind of start breathing in the history of what has happened there, and the way that like the myths and the legends and the stories of the world permeate through the player base and through the player experience. It's going to be really important for these places to be brought to life, and so that's the goal for sure.
Dibs on being cast in the movie. The next question here is going to be from Fire Grill. So I'm going to read it. It's here. Using a rough percentage guesstimate. So how much of individual assets are mitigated to or migrated to HDRP already? And they said, at risk of sounding dumb, was this already done? I'm just making sure I don't. That's what they said. So just in case the question was, it's done already. But any comments that you or Kyle could add to that?
It's definitely not done already.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Kyle?
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, it's not done already. I would say if I had to give a rough estimate, I would say probably about 20% of the total assets at this point. But bear in mind, like, that has not been an immediate focus of ours. It's actually becoming my immediate focus as of tomorrow. Which, Kyle, by the way, I need to
no
meet
worries.
with you and go over a couple pieces of that. But that's something that once we do start focusing on that, it really shouldn't take a long time. The key, though, is that we have the pieces converted already that we need to begin, kind of the development processes that we need. So when we're thinking about things like the combat evolutions and tweaks that are being worked on, and what's needed in the new project to get that rolling, we're in good shape. And now it's about the bringing the whole host of it in and making that ready to go. So that is you'll see me reiterate that in the producer's letter. That's definitely becoming a big focus of ours right now.
Awesome. I love how we're doing this live. Like, and Kyle, we're going to have a meeting about that, by the way.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Got to use every second we have, even if it's live. Next question here is from Garthorn Ironstar. It says, during the HDRP stream, you mentioned that the overworld would be entirely seamless except for teleportation and summon abilities, which would require a loading screen to stream in the collision and terrain data. Would it be possible to have the teleport summon spell itself trigger a preload of the collision terrain data to eliminate the need for a loading screen? Kyle, that sounds like a you question.
Yeah, so there actually isn't necessarily a load screen tied to a teleportation or a summon ability. It's just anytime the streamer requests an asset off disk that we've marked as required for simulation. So that there's a good chance that that would happen if you teleported across the world, but there's also a chance that it would happen if your hard drive was really, really bad and your movement speed was really, really high and you legged it across the zone and your hard drive couldn't keep up with the requested asset loads, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily tied directly to a teleportation or a summon ability. It's just tied to you not having a required asset loaded at the time that your game thinks it's necessary to be loaded. To answer your actual question, though, not really. We can't necessarily preload it because we can't always account for it. Like, there's not always a lead up to the event of a teleportation, for example. So, say a GM slash summons you or something. That's just instantaneous. Your client wasn't able to predict that it was going to be in a new location immediately. There are other cases that, yeah, we probably could preload stuff and maybe we do it. But honestly, you're looking at
It's so
seconds
fast.
of a screen
It's
at
so
this point. Yeah. Because the required for simulation assets is just the collision, which is the minuscule part of what's actually being loaded. It's tens of megabytes for a tile versus the potentially gigabytes of data for the rendering side of things. So textures, the terrain, NPC models, animations, audio, all of that other stuff is the actual bulk of what's being loaded. And none of that's actually required for the simulation. So none of that needs to be behind a load screen. So that's
Awesome.
that's my answer for that.
I mean,
And if
it's
I'm-
it currently when I hop from like Thrown Fast to Fairtail, for example, it's like maybe a second and a half.
And
2
that's
seconds.
only if you teleport. Like if you were to just run,
Oh yeah,
then there would be no actual, because it's able to buffer in around you with those colored squares from the previous stream that you saw. If something is loaded in a blue or a green tile, then it's not required for the simulation yet until it hits the LOD 0 tile, which is what I'm on, the high quality tile. At that point, if it's still not done loading, then we've got a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even running around the game world at 300 or 400% movement speed, which is an amount of movement speed that players will never have, regardless of what they have access to. It's, I mean, I can run, which, by the way, absolutely amazing. Being able to run from Thrown Fast to Fairtail seamlessly, so cool. But I can do that without a hitch. So pretty cool.
Awesome. And just last piece on that too, we have actually said as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the dungeons may still be a load in. Again, it may not take as much time, but it might not be seamless to get into some of those dungeons or to build those out, if that's correct, right?
Of course, yeah. So we're talking seamless on the continent that you're on. So if that requires you to go to another continent or to an isolated zone that is separate from a continent, then there is a load screen there. Yep. Although they're very minimal now because again, it's still just loading the necessary for simulation data, which is generally just collision data and code.
Awesome. Well, everybody, that's our hour. We hit it right. It's literally right on the money here. So a couple things.
Way too fast.
It did go fast. I feel like we could do this for a few more hours. Ben's like, no, just kidding. So it's something we could definitely do in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do really appreciate for all the fans out there and everybody who came to Twitch, whether you're discovering Pantheon for the first time or you followed us and support us. Really appreciate the flow of the questions. It was awesome. I know that we can't get to all of them, but keep asking the questions in our different social media. Stay connected with us on there. If you want to help support this game, we've said it a few times, it is invaluable what you're able to do with a simple pledge. It means the world to us. PantheonMMO.com. Check it out. See what's there for you. There's some cool things. It doesn't mean you have to become a VIP tester, but if you want to, it's there for you. There's a lot of options. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that came on here to answer these questions. Chris, thank you. Adam, Kyle, JN, awesome having you guys on here, and I really appreciate all the. I mean, we pretty much answered every question that we had there. the ones that we had queued up, we didn't shy away. So I do appreciate that. And hopefully everyone on Twitch, you guys enjoyed that. So any closing remarks from anybody before we head out for the night?
I would say, like, for the VIP tester community, let us know if you feel like this kind of format is something that we should do more. It doesn't also have to be a talking head stream every time. It could be this with a mixture, or while there's gameplay or different kind of spotlights going on with the game. We're at a kind of a place right now where it was helpful with everything that we kind of have in process and in transition right now to do this month. But we hope that it was helpful, and there's so many more topics that we can speak to directly. So if this was something that was appreciated and you'd like to see more of, then let us know.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate, again, all your support. And next week, we'll have the newsletter coming out, so you get your alpha updates, where we're at on that path, and some other fun content that I'm excited about, but I'll leave it at that. I know Chris is excited about as well. So again, thank you, everybody. It was an awesome time tonight. Thanks to the community, and we'll see you guys very soon. Until next time.
See you guys.
See ya.
See everyone.